a kú dédé àsìkò yìí o gbogbo ẹ̀yin lólùfẹ́ wa tẹ́ ń wò wá nílé pátá. Lénìí a fẹ́ ṣàfihàn fún yín ohun tó ṣẹlẹ̀ nílùú Amẹ́ríkà o. Ààrẹ wa Muhammadu Buhari wọ́n wà nílùú Amẹ́ríkà báyìí níbi tí gbogbo ìjọba gbogbo àwọn ìjọba tó ń darí ayé pátá bí tí wọ́n ti jọ ṣe àṣepapọ̀ tí wọ́n dúró láti sọ ẹ̀dùn ọkàn wọn nípa bó ṣe ń ṣègbìyànjú láti gbèlú wọn ga. Ṣùgbọ́n lénìí àwọn nǹkan tó ṣẹlẹ̀ ń bí lénìí nǹkan ìyàlẹ́nu pátá gbà ni o. Nígbà tí ààrẹ wa Muhammadu Buhari tó wà ní New York láti bá gbogbo àgbáyé sọ̀rọ̀, ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àwọn ààrẹ àgbáyé ló wà lórí ìjókòó, ṣùgbọ́n nǹkan tó jẹ́ ohun ìyàlẹ́nu ń bẹ ni pé àwọn ọmọ Yorùbá, àwọn ọmọ Ìgbò tí wọ́n wà nílùú Amẹ́ríkà wọ́n máa kóra wọn jọ o, wọ́n kóra wọn jọ. Àwọn kan nù wọn àwọn tako President Muhammadu Buhari, àwọn kan nù wọn àwọn wọ green and white, wọ́n sọpọ́tì Muhammadu Buhari. Ààrẹ rẹ̀ ń gbọ́ tó ń bá wa sọ̀rọ̀ yìí nípa bó ṣe ṣèjọba wọn nílùú Nàìjíríà. Gbogbo wa láti mọ̀ pé Amẹ́ríkà rèé, Amẹ́ríkà ló ń darí ayé o. Lénìí ààrẹ Muhammadu Buhari wọ́n wà nílùú Amẹ́ríkà báyìí o. Báwọn ṣe ń sọ̀rọ̀ nínú họ́ọ̀lù báyìí tí wọ́n bá gbogbo àgbáyé sọ̀rọ̀, bẹ́ẹ̀ làwọn ọmọ Nàìjíríà kóra wọn jọ níta, táwọn kan nú wọn tó sì ṣàtakò sí gbogbo nǹkan tí Muhammadu Buhari ń sọ. Ṣùgbọ́n Yorùbá máa pòwe kan o, wọ́n ní kò ní burú títí kó má kẹ́nìkan mọ́ ni. Àwọn èèyàn kejì tẹ́ àwọn ta tún rí ń bẹ̀ ni pé àwọn kan náà wà ní àwọn èèyàn tó wà ń tà yìí táwọn jẹ́ supporters fún Muhammadu Buhari tó sọ̀pọ́tì ìlú Nàìjíríà, tó ń dúró pé kí Nàìjíríà máa pín, kí Nàìjíríà sì máa jẹ́ wọ́n Nàìjíríà lọ, pé ká má pín yẹlẹyẹlẹ. Àwọn wà lẹ́gbẹ̀ẹ́ kan, àwọn ilẹ̀ ti rí green white and green lọ́wọ́ wọn yìí. Gbogbo bí ààrẹ wa ṣe ń sọ̀rọ̀ nínú ilé, bẹ́ẹ̀ àwọn èèyàn wọ̀nyí àwọn dúró síta, wọ́n dúró síta, kálukú ṣe tiẹ̀. Àwọn kan nù wọn wọ́n sọ̀pọ́tì Yorùbá nation, àwọn kan nù wọn wọ́n sọ̀pọ́tì one Nigeria, àwọn kan nù wọn àwọn jẹ́ ti Biafra. Ṣẹ́rírú ọjọ́ ìní yìí tí ààrẹ Muhammadu Buhari tó ń sọ̀rọ̀ ní gbogbo, tó ń sọ̀rọ̀ fún gbogbo àgbáyé nílùú Amẹ́ríkà yìí, àwọn èèyàn wọ̀nyí wọ́n ti ń dúró de ọjọ́ ìní yìí o. Pàápàá jùlọ àwọn tí wọ́n dúró pé kí Nàìjíríà pín kí kálukú máa lọ. Wọ́n nígbàgbọ́ pé ní ọjọ́ ìní yìí làwọn ṣàlàyé gbogbo ẹ̀dùn ọkàn àwọn fún gbogbo àgbáyé. Wọ́n ní lóòótọ́ àwọn tí ń ṣègbìyànjú tipẹ́ ní Nàìjíríà pé káyé ó gbà wọ́n, ṣùgbọ́n àwọn nígbàgbọ́ pé ibi táwọn wà lénìí gbogbo ayé ló máa gbà wọ́n. Ìdí rèé tí wọ́n fi túyáyá tó ń túyáyá jáde tó sì dúró pé àfi kí Nàìjíríà ò pín. Ẹ̀yin tẹ́ ń gbọ́ mi nílé, àwọn èèyàn wọ̀nyí gbogbo bí Muhammadu Buhari ṣe ń sọ̀rọ̀ nínú ilé làwọn ń ṣe tiwọn lọ níta o. wọ́n ṣe tiwọn lọ níta. ẹ jẹ́ kí n gbé ọ́díò wọn sókè díẹ̀ kẹ́ gbọ́ orin tí wọ́n ń kọ. ṣé ń gbọ́ báyìí? ìlú ìbílẹ̀ ni wọ́n lù wọ́n. bẹ́ẹ̀ àwọn kan pariwo wá Nàìjíríà nù wọn. ṣètìlì báyìí àwọn kan pariwo wá Nàìjíríà, àwọn kan ní rárá o kò sí ohun tó jọ ọ̀rọ̀ yìí di iṣu atayànyàn o nílùú Amẹ́ríkà. bẹ́ẹ̀ ààrẹ Muhammadu Buhari àwọn wà nílé tí wọ́n sọ̀rọ̀ lọ. àwọn sọ̀rọ̀ lọ. ààrẹ ń sọ̀rọ̀ nílé ìta sì ń dàrú. sẹ́rí báyìí àwọn kan dúró lórí wá Nàìjíríà, àwọn kan ní kò sí ohun tó jọ rárá. sẹ́yìn gbọ́ báyìí, sẹ́yìn gbọ́ nǹkan tó ń sọ. sẹ́yìn gbọ́, sẹ́yìn gbọ́. so bó ṣe rí lélẹ́yìí. àwọn ọ̀dọ́ méjèèjì yìí àwọn kan sọ̀pọ́tì Muhammadu Buhari, wọ́n sọ̀pọ́tì wọn Nàìjíríà, ṣùgbọ́n àwọn kejì ní rárá o kí Nàìjíríà ò pín, kí kálukú máa lọ lọ́tọ̀ọ̀tọ̀, kí kálukú dọ́mù ìyá ẹ̀ gbé. ẹ jẹ́ wọn wá gbé sókè ká gbọ́ ohun tí ààrẹ Muhammadu Buhari tí wọ́n ń bá wa sọ.
This is in recognition of the need for a broad-based global partnership in the ongoing battle against transborder crimes, including terrorism and piracy. Mr. President, we must deal not only with the symptoms of conflict, but also the immediate causes that fuel conflicts in the first place. These include poor and undemocratic governance, human rights abuses, poverty, ignorance, injustice, and inequalities. There are no easy solutions to these conditions. They require long-term investments and more effective international cooperation. In this connection, my delegation underscores the importance of promoting peaceful, unfettered, and inclusive participation of states in global action towards conflict prevention. This will facilitate the achievement of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the African Union Agenda 2063. In West Africa especially, our democratic gains of the past decades are now being eroded. The recent trend of unconstitutional takeover of power, sometimes in reaction to unilateral changes of constitution by some leaders, must not be tolerated by the international community. Nigeria fully supports the efforts of ECOWAS to address this growing challenge and appreciates the support of both the African Union and the United Nations. In this regard, I would like to reiterate that as leaders of our individual member states, we need to adhere to constitutional provisions of our countries, particularly on term limits. This is one area that generates crisis and political tension in our sub-region. Mr. President, Nigeria is fully committed to nuclear non-proliferation and has always supported the view that it should involve all states. Disarmament conventions deserve the support of all states, small, large, nuclear, or non-nuclear. Nuclear weapons remain the ultimate agents of mass destruction, and their total elimination should be the final objective of all disarmament processes within the broad spectrum of goals being pursued by the United Nations. In this regard, Nigeria would participate actively in forthcoming review conference of Nuclear Prohibition Treaty and also the first meeting of states parties to the landmark treaty on the provision of nuclear weapons, scheduled to take place within the first quarter of 2022. Nigeria regards these upcoming events as important steps towards realization of a world free of nuclear weapons. We are therefore supportive of any diplomatic efforts in this direction. We hope that the upcoming Nuclear Prohibition Treaty Review Conference would lead to a successful outcome that would facilitate the nuclearization of the world. We will do our part to ensure such an outcome. Mr. President, terrorism continues to dominate security discourse worldwide. In Nigeria, Boko Haram, terrorist group, though fragmented by internal strife and weakened by our defense forces, is still active and preying on soft targets. Nigeria will continue to work closely with United Nations counter-terrorism bodies and entities with a view to bringing this scourge to an end. Nigeria has spared no effort in addressing the challenges of terrorism posed by the activities of Boko Haram in northeast Nigeria, the Lake Chad region, as well as banditry in the northwest and north central. Mr. President, the impact of climate change is already with us in Nigeria, manifesting in various ways: conflict trigger, food insecurity, drying up of lakes, loss of livelihood, and youth migration, among others. The trend is the same in many other countries that are threatened by forest fires, rising seas, drought, and desertification. As leaders, we must create inclusive and gender-sensitive policies that address all issues connected to climate action for mitigation and resilience. This is why we are working on a transition to low-carbon economy consistent with achieving the Paris Climate Agreement on Sustainable Development Goals. Mr. President, combating illicit financial flows and ensuring the recovery and return of illicitly acquired assets have the potential to provide resources in the immediate term for financing development in the area of COVID-19 pandemic and beyond. It drives national governments of resources needed to provide adequate and meaningful sources of livelihood for their citizens. The latter gives rise to more irregular migration patterns and unwholesome consequences for interstate and human relations. Mr. President, the issue of debt, we have seen that developing countries have been faced with unsustainable debt burdens even before the pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic has increased the risk of a new wave of deepening debt where vital public financial resources are allocated to external debt servicing and payments at the expense of domestic health and financing for critical development needs. Therefore, there is an urgent need to consider expansion and extension of debt service suspension initiative to include all least developed countries and small island developing states facing fiscal and liquidity challenges. Mr. President, Nigeria reaffirms that international trade is an engine for development and sustained economic growth, as well as global
they will learn.
education.
With time, they will see. With time, they will understand. They just post this stuff online for them to come get paid to do certain things they don't know about. But now that they understand, they can't live because of money, but they give us the space, which we respect. And we too, we are doing our protest professionally. Everything is peaceful. Nobody is fighting.
In overview, generally, what do you think? What do you expect after these rallies and
I expect the United Nations to bring their function to send peacekeeping force to protect civil, armless Nigerian landowner citizens, and for there should be referendum and people should be listened to that their right to self-determination, having petition accordingly to the United States Security Council.
Thank you very much. And what do you want to say about the petition on the referendum?
The petition is going on. I'm not going to talk much about our strategy without taking permission. We have our strategy and we're going to get results. We're not going to announce our strategy.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. Take care. Okay.
The recent rise in hate-related crimes globally underscore the urgent need to continue our engagement about racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and other related intolerance. It is sad to know that the issue of racism remains alive globally. We are beginning to forget our affirmation of the inherent dignity and the equal and inalienable rights of every individual as enshrined in the United Nations Charter. No society can claim to be free or just if it is deprived of any one of these rights. Today, racism drives hate crimes and institutional discrimination. In all this, Africans and people of African descent are among the major victims. I am confident that this forum will make significant impact in the quest to end race-related vices and injustices. Mr. President, no reform of the United Nations system is more urgent than that of Security Council. Stakeholders around the world are asking how such power could be concentrated in scant representation. The governmental negotiations have taken too long, some 15 years. We must avoid going in circles. Consensus has been achieved in some of the elements of this reform, especially that of the representation of Africa on the basis of the Adress consensus and the Sartre declaration. It is unreasonable to expect unanimity in this matter. Mr. President, our organization is at the peak of the multilateral system. It is also the preeminent body for solving our current and emerging challenges and for developing norms that are protective of us all. In the current moment, hope for this is dependent on how we assist each other to get COVID-19 out of all countries, regardless of their classification. We can do and we must do. In this regard, let me close my statement by paying special tribute to a great and humane internationalist and an exemplary practitioner of multilateral cooperation. I am speaking of Chancellor Angela Merkel of the Federal Republic of Germany as she exits the stage. We wish her well. Thank you.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.